Karen Un had a chance to grab something before being eaten by the zombies in the nurse's office. She saw the nurse's report and quickly put it in her mouth. When she woke up, her external injuries had healed, but the pain and trauma lingered. She was thinking about how to use the nurse's report. By lunchtime, Jiha was already infected, but he wasn't in the nurse's office. The students she saw in the hallway had similar symptoms. One student in Karen Un's class also showed symptoms. She also wondered what had happened to the girl on the bus. If only the man hadn't interrupted, she would have known. Overwhelmed by everything happening, Karen Un calmed herself down. Her current goal was to progress with the story by following the plot and collecting information. She was lost in thought when Jiha stopped her from walking into a bus, almost causing an accident. She thanked him. They talked about Jiha's timetable. Karen Un asked if he had an outdoor class that day. Jiha replied that he did. It was PE during the 5th period. Jiha mentioned he had planned to work with his friend for a performance assessment, but his friend forgot the materials. On their way to class, Karen Un realized something. While stuck in this time loop, if she followed the story faithfully, she could change certain events to some extent. For example, if the story stated, Karen Un has finished getting ready for an important day, she could choose what to bring as long as it fit the description. The same rule applied to their conversation on the way to school. As expected, Jiha asked Karen Un to meet him in the music room at lunch, and she agreed. The book didn't specify what happened between that moment and lunchtime, so Karen Un had the freedom to do whatever she wanted until then. Before parting ways, she gave Jiha a stun gun, saying it was a gift. In the classroom, Karen thought about how the virus spread and started listing the timeline. The students left their class during the 3rd period, and the nurse's office was already infected. However, when Karen Un went to the music room at lunch, she had no idea what was going to happen. She believed there were 2 reasons for this. It was hard for her to distinguish zombies from ordinary extras. By now, she had learned to sense their unique aura. Additionally, infected students were quarantined in the nurse's office, so there weren't many zombies in the hallways. She finished her timeline for when Jiha became a zombie. In the morning, Jiha started off as a normal student. But somewhere perhaps during the 1st or 2nd period things change. By the 3rd period, coughing students headed to the nurse's office, raising suspicions that the office was a breeding ground for the outbreak. By the 4th period, it became clear. Jiha had turned into a zombie and was seen in the music room. Karen checked the nurse's report, which showed symptoms and prescribed medication for students who visited the nurse's office between morning and lunch. She sorted the symptoms to identify similarities among the students. The symptoms included coughing, high fever, and nausea. She realized that many students were coughing and vomiting in the hallways. If they had stayed in the nurse's office, the virus might not have spread. She also noticed in the nurse's report that a student with similar symptoms, Sungwon-oh from 2nd year, Class 4, Jiha's class, had been sent back to the classroom after receiving medication. Karen Un thought Sungwon might have spread the virus to Jiha's class. She immediately rushed to Jiha's class, using the excuse of needing to go to the bathroom. She believed staying with Jiha could prevent the story's genre from changing and restore the plot's normal ending. When she arrived at Jiha's class, she shouted his name and aggressively opened the door. The teacher asked why she was there, and Jiha questioned what she was doing. Ignoring them, she focused on Sungwon. Overwhelmed with emotion and intent on saving Jiha, she grabbed a chair and smashed it on Sungwon's head. Blood splattered on Karen's face, but she felt reassured knowing Jiha was safe. With blood on her face, Karen smiled at Jiha, saying, "Thank goodness. Something terrible would have happened if I were a little late." She added that this wasn't over yet, as more infected people would come. She told Jiha they needed to evacuate. Meanwhile, Jiha was horrified by what Karen had done. Since Jiha was horrified by what Karen had done, he was tense as Karen walked toward him. Jiha asked Karen what she was doing, but before Karen could fully explain that there would be an announcement in half an hour, Jiha cut her off. He was too scared because of what she had done and couldn't believe her. Jiha couldn't believe that this was Karen Un. He asked her, "Who are you? You're not Karen, are you?" Jiha refused to let Karen come any closer. While holding and pointing the stun gun that had been given to him, he warned Karen to stay away. Since that morning, Jiha had noticed that Karen was acting strangely. When Karen saw Jiha's face, filled with fear and disgust, she realized that the look he gave her was something she had never read about in the book. Jiha was looking at her with such extreme repulsion that Karen understood. From others' perspectives, the shadow was still human, not yet a zombie, and hadn't exhibited zombie-like behavior. It was natural for them to react this way to her. Karen said, "It's okay, I can just start over." She then jumped out of Jiha's classroom window, dying once again, and restarted from the beginning. Karen woke up in her room, just like before, and once again, she and Jiha walked to school together. Jiha noticed that Karen didn't look well and asked her, "What's wrong?" Karen replied, "It's nothing," and spoke to Jiha as they crossed the street. She touched Jiha's face and said, "Usually, when the main character of a story is cursed, all it takes is one kiss to make everything right. Shall we give it a go?" Karen leaned in and kissed Jiha. However, since they were in the middle of the road, they were hit by a bus. Karen died again, returned to the beginning, and woke up in her room. Her alarm clock rang, and she turned it off. She immediately got up, went to her desk, grabbed her notebook, and once again added numbers to the blank pages. Looking at the number 288, she said, "I failed again." A few minutes later, Karen and Jiha were once again heading to school together. This time, Karen was almost hit by the bus again, but Jiha stopped her before she could cross. She thanked him. After experiencing the time loop so many times, Karen showed visible signs of frustration, which Jiha noticed. He asked her, "What's with that look? Is something wrong?" Karen stared at Jiha with lifeless eyes and thought to herself, "If I tell you I've died 288 times trying to save you, would that change the plot at all?" However, she didn't say this aloud. Instead, she told Jiha, "It's nothing." Karen believed it wouldn't make a difference, she had already tried. Through her repeated deaths, Karen figured out a few things. First, the source of the zombie infection was someone on the bus that had almost run her over. Every time she tried to board the bus to identify the source, she ended up dying. The infected students exhibited symptoms like coughing, nausea, fever, and bleeding. The whites of their reddening eyes turned black, and dark blue bruises appeared on their skin. Zombies seemed to emit a red energy. This much Karen had observed from Jiha. Each time Karen died and restarted, she tried to save Jiha. Through this, she learned that one or two students that get infected on the bus. In Karen's class, there was a student named Shinbi Yun, an extra in the book. Shinbi wasn't memorable due to her gloomy personality. Karen thought it would be best to quarantine everyone in the nurse's office, but once again, Jiha became infected in front of her. Karen died and restarted, writing in her notebook that it was her 289th life. She said, "Shit, here I am again." She questioned herself, "What am I doing wrong? Why do I keep ending up back here?" When she wanted to give up, she read the book. It was filled with beautiful, sweet stories from a world where Jiha and Karen loved each other and overcame obstacles easily. This only made her more depressed. She threw her phone across the room and cried, saying, "What's the use of something like this to me right now?" She continued crying, repeating, "I'm scared," over and over. In the real world, she was never alone no matter how hard things got, but in this book's world, Karen had no one. The only real person, Jiha, kept dying and turning into a monster. While crying, she mumbled, "Could something be wrong with Jiha?" She slapped her face to snap out of it and said, "No, that can't be. Jiha is the male protagonist. He's the only one on my side. I can't get soft just because I've been through this a few hundred times." She motivated herself, saying, "I've only tried 289 times. I've got this. I can save Jiha." When she and Jiha walked to school again, she was stopped by Jiha from being hit by the bus. However, when she looked at Jiha, his appearance seemed dark and ominous. Fear consumed her, and she thought, what if Jiha isn't on my side? What would I do if I can't even trust him? In her panic, Karen pushed Jiha away and ran from him. Jiha tried to follow her but was hit by the bus. Blood splattered as Karen thought, it's better to just end this right here. Once again, she woke up in her room and returned to the start of the book. She cried, asking, what did I do wrong? Why do I keep getting it wrong? Why do I keep ending up back here? I want to disappear. I want the pain to end. Karen had died 378 times now. No matter what she did, nothing improved. She walked down the hallway with lifeless eyes, heading toward a group of zombies. She thought, I'm used to it. I'm used to being torn apart and the pain of being bitten. This time, I hope it'll feel a little better. Just as the zombies were about to grab her, someone pulled her to safety and said, what's wrong with you? You know they're infected, so why are you heading toward them? The person led Karen to a safe place, and she realized her savior was an extra. This became an unforgettable moment for Karen when she met the unknown extra. Karen was grabbed by the hand by the extra, and they ran away from the zombies. The extra said, quick, come this way. The extra urged Karen, hurry up, as they fled. While running, Karen thought to herself, this hasn't happened before. An extra saving me from zombies? Eventually, they made it into a classroom, and the extra quickly locked the door and made a phone call. While the extra was on the phone, Karen noticed that the phone being called was in the classroom next door. The zombies outside their hiding spot were now moving toward the other classroom where the extra had called. The extra explained to Karen that zombies are sensitive to sounds. She revealed that she had left phones in the two nearby classrooms and called one of them. When Karen asked why the extra had so many phones, the extra replied that the phones weren't hers. The extra then said to Karen, you nearly got yourself into some serious trouble. Anyone could see those students were infected. Why'd you go that way? Are you trying to get yourself killed? Karen replied bluntly, yes. The atmosphere turned heavy, and an awkward silence fell between them. The extra broke the silence, saying, I've thought this for a while, but you're pretty rude. I saved you, and now I have to listen to you talk like this? Karen shot back, who told you to save me? Do you even know me? The extra replied, of course. We're in the same class. Karen's face registered shock. The extra continued, no way, you don't know who I am. I did hear rumors that you only care about guys, but I thought you'd be better than that. Karen looked annoyed. I've got my reasons, okay? It's not like knowing you or not affects my life. The extra said calmly, true. I guess it's not really all that important right now. The extra then admitted, I had a reason for saving you. I thought things might get tough on my own, and then I happened to see a familiar face. She smiled and added, let's raid the snack bar together. Karen replied incredulously, what? The extra said, you know what the state of the school is right now, right? It's not like we can just casually waltz out of here. And the cafeteria, I can't even describe it. It's a total zombie nest. If we're going to escape, we need to stock up on food, even if it's just snacks. So if we team up, Karen cut her off. Nope. After arrogantly saving me without my permission, did you think I'd just follow your orders? I barely have the strength to move, and my life has no meaning anymore. I've lost the will to live. The extra stayed quiet for a moment before saying, you're grumpy because you're hungry, aren't you? Karen looked furious. No, that has nothing to. The extra cut her off and grabbed her hand, saying, be quiet. The zombies will come running if they hear you. Karen was stunned into silence. She thought to herself, the extra's hands feel warm. She then wondered, should I just go along with this? Will we really be able to get out of here? She hesitated but eventually said, I think it'll work if we use the same trick as last time. The extra grinned. I thought of an idea earlier. She pulled out her phone and called one of the phones in a nearby classroom. The sound of the ringing phone drew the zombies away. The extra exclaimed, "Now we run for our lives." As they ran, Karen suddenly heard a buzzing sound. For a brief moment, she saw the extra's figure flicker, but the image was blurry. Shock registered on her face. The extra noticed and asked, "What's wrong?" Karen shook her head. "It's nothing." But in her mind, she questioned, "What was that just now? Did I see that wrong?" After some time, they reached another classroom. Karen held the door shut as zombies tried to force their way in. She called out, "Are you done yet?" Just then, the glass on the door shattered, and a zombie nearly grabbed Karen. She managed to dodge in time. Meanwhile, the extra was tying curtains together by the window. "Just hang on. It's almost ready." Karen observed the extra's frantic efforts and thought bitterly, "So you're going to run to the classroom closest to the snack bar, form a rope, and climb down? You call this a plan? Lunatic." Stress etched on her face, she asked, "How much longer do I have to hold the door?" The extra replied, "Done. Let's go." They climbed down and made it safely to the snack bar. The extra began looking for food while Karen silently watched. The extra sighed, "I wanted to check, just in case. But it's mostly cleaned out, so there's not much left. Oh, but there are still some chocolate bars and triangle kimbap left." She held them up and asked, "Aren't you hungry? We just ran like crazy. There's Jeonju kimbap and tuna mayo. Which one do you want?" Karen replied hesitantly, "I'll take Jeonju kimbap." As Karen ate, she thought, "I can't believe I went through all that just for this stupid kimbap." She realized it had been a long time since she had a proper conversation with anyone. The kimbap was cold, but she ate it anyway. She remembered the extra's earlier comment, "Aren't you acting like this because you're hungry?" Karen reflected, "In all the hundreds of resets I've been through, I've never once had a single bite of food. Eating this cold kimbap straight from the wrapper. Maybe that's why it tastes so good." She began to cry. The extra noticed and said, "You know, when you said your life had no meaning, I was really taken aback. At school, you always acted so bitchy and aloof, you know? You refused to talk to anyone and seemed like nothing mattered except yourself. But right now, having you as company gives me strength. Earlier, when we planned how to get to the snack bar, we worked pretty well together." Tears streamed down Karen's face, her eyes red. The extra continued, "If you really don't have anything to live for, why don't we discover it together? You never know. If we manage to stay alive long enough, we might find a miracle. So let's escape together, all right?" Karen was touched. For the first time, she felt like she had someone to rely on. She thought, even in this nonsensical world, where giving up isn't an option, a hand is just as warm as it was in my previous life. And a triangle kimbap is just as delicious. She wondered, if I'm still the protagonist of this story, does that mean I can choose you to be my co-lead? Karen looked at the extra and said, "All right, let's escape together." The extra smiled, "You made the right choice. Now that I think about it, you still don't know my name, do you?" Just as the extra was about to reveal her name, someone attacked her from behind with a baseball bat. Karen watched in horror as the extra collapsed, blood pooling around her. The attacker spoke to his companion, "I told you someone would get to the snack bar before us." The companion replied, "Minwoo said not to kill anyone." The attacker scoffed, "Who cares? Why do we have to follow everything he says? It's not like he's the king or anything. Plus, in situations like this, you have to kill a person or two." The attacker then turned to Karen. "Hey, listen up." But before he could finish, he noticed Karen biting her tongue, blood dripping from her mouth. She died, resetting to the beginning again. Karen woke up in her room, her eyes wide. Things were going to be different this time, she said, motivated. She got out of bed and prepared for school. This time, she packed weapons in her bag, tied her hair back, and put on a tracksuit. Looking at herself in the mirror, she said, "All right, let's do this." I'll save you, no matter what. Even though I have no idea who you are, I'll find a way to find you.